Welcome to Crosstown Cardboard, episode 22, and we're both smiling because our New York Knicks are currently on a 9-game winning streak at the time of this podcast dropping. They just beat the Celtics in overtime, and we're both wearing our Knicks because we are crosstown of New York City. Myself, Carmine at Carmine's Cards, being born and raised in Ossining, New York, Westchester County, across town from Craig, who was born and raised on Long Island. That's my good buddy at New York City Sports Cards. Craig, we're not going to harp too much on the Knicks. We're going to talk about digging yourself out of a hole. When you're down on a card, what are some strategies you can use to get back out of that hole and keep the wheel turning and try to avoid losing money? Because nobody wants to do that. But before we get into our big topic, I want to ask you, how are you doing? And not only that, but also, how are you feeling about the New York Knicks?
I am feeling amazing about the New York Knicks. I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. I hit that point in the school year as a teacher where summer break, you could kind of see it ahead of us. Like I
Already?
could start to taste it.
Wow.
So the light is at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, the Knicks won 9 games in a row. New York City is always a little extra energy when the Knicks are playing well. My head last night after that performance from Emmanuel Quickly was, what type of Emmanuel Quickly card can I pick up? So I'm going to have to dig a little deeper there. But speaking of digging a little bit deeper, tonight's topic, digging yourself out of a hole. Wow,
Wow.
that was unintentional. When we first came up with this topic, the title, for some reason, my mind immediately went to Pokemon, and I thought about Diglett and Doug Trio.
Okay.
You know, Diglett. When you get
Yes.
Diglett, you get Diglett out of the cave. It's
Mm-hmm.
it already comes with the move Dig.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about Pokemon. We're going to talk about our own card collecting experiences here. So,
Right.
digging yourself out of a hole. We said, what does it mean to be in this card hole? It means to have bought a card for X amount, and now the value has gone way down.
Mm-hmm.
So, Carmine, like, what's one option when you're in that hole, right? What's an easy thing that you could do?
An easy thing, and I love the math teacher part of this, to lead the student into the answer. One of the things you can do is sell for a loss and try to reinvest that money and make your way back up rather than waiting for the card that you're in a hole on or that you're at a loss on to sell for more, maybe have a newer comp, and then you can wait for that value to increase once again.
And I think you hear a lot of content creators talk about that. If you're down on a card, sell it for the loss and reinvest it. And I totally get that. But, you and I being a little more collectors, I think it's easier said than done to sell for a loss on a card you bought that you don't really care about. But maybe you have a card of a player or a team you like and you're down on that. Then I have that conversation with myself. Well, would I rather own this card of a player I really like, or would I rather sell it and take a loss? And, I had an example recently with a Christian Pulisic autograph, who's one of the players that I collect, where I was down a little bit on it and I wasn't ready to just sell it for a loss. I would have rather owned it at that point. But that's when, sometimes you could be a little bit savvy and dig yourself out of that hole and don't just take the loss, but try to work your way out of it to ultimately be back on top.
Okay, so that perfectly teased this Pulisic story, and I want to know, because I haven't heard it yet either, how you dug yourself out of a hole in this scenario.
Boom. Okay. So a little over a year ago, I purchased a 2017-18 Select Soccer Christian Pulisic on-card autograph. It was an SGC 9 with a 10 autograph, although there was a smudge on the autograph, so I don't know what the grader was looking at.
Oh, okay.
I purchased that for $275. It's an on-card autograph. It's Pulisic. It's a player I like, and I thought, yeah, this is a card that's going to be in my collection, and it did stay in my collection for a while. But like certain cards, you just fall out of love with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of over it. Recent comps for that card were at 150. I paid
Wow.
270. I paid 275.
Okay.
So you sell that, you figure that's $125 loss. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, and I was on Facebook. Just, I love Facebook for buying cards, by the way. You see a lot of cool, unique stuff. And I'm on a soccer card collecting page, and I saw a couple of cards that were available that caught my eye for a couple of reasons. They were players I like, and they were low pop. So one of them was a Harry Kane Optic Gold out of 10 in a PSA 9.
Ooh,
And
nice.
the person had it valued at $100, which seemed incredibly low to me. And I
Mhm.
checked the pop report; it was a pop one.
Nice, okay. Any higher?
Yes, one higher.
Okay.
The other card in the same post was a Rose Lavelle autograph out of 25 in a PSA 9. I'll show a picture of that in a little bit. And that is a pop one. And he had that valued at 125. So already I'm looking at these two cards that I like that are low pop that I already think are undervalued based on what he priced them at.
Yeah.
So where does the Pulisic come into play? He randomly comments on his own posts and says, so I got a little lucky here. And he says, oh, and I'm also willing to trade for U.S. men's national team autographs.
Oh my gosh, what a ding 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 for you.
That's what I'm saying. So I was able to trade the Pulisic and I added $60 cash and I got that Harry Kane and I
Mhm.
got the Rose Lavelle. Now, Rose Lavelle is one of the best players on the U.S. women's national team. Here's the card
Okay.
right there. So the Women's World Cup is this summer. So, I'm thinking ahead. It's the week of nationals. So I love to have this one. It's a pop one. And yeah, the stars aligned, right? Because I got a little lucky. He was looking for a U.S. men's national team, but I was able to add $60 cash on top. So if you kind of figure, well, I'm into the Pulisic for 275, add the $60 cash. Now I'm into those two cards for 335.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I have a friend who collects Harry Kane. So I was then able to take that Harry Kane that he valued at 250. I
Mhm.
added a little bit of cash to it, $50. And in exchange, I'm going to lead off with this one because this card is sweet. This is from 2015 Panini Father's Day. Kobe Bryant
Oh,
heading
nice.
a soccer ball.
Yeah.
Super cool card. Sell for about 150. There's a cracked ice version out of 25.
Okay.
And I picked up this Tim Weah, which is a 2018 Panini Treble, which is a really notable soccer product. It kind of has the lighting isn't doing it justice, but it kind of has a PMG feel to it.
Yeah, it looks like the collector's, or the, Upper Deck employee exclusive PMG with that purple coating.
There you go. And this is out of 49. This is Tim Weah, who's a U.S. men's national team player. It's got the rookie card badge and everything. And this is a Pop 2 none higher.
Ooh, okay.
So I traded the Pulisic in cash for the Harry Kane and the Rose Lavelle. I then took the
Yes.
Harry Kane, I added a little cash, and I got the Kobe and the Tim Weah. So I've got these
Yes.
three cards here that after doing a little bit of calculation, I am into four. I should have done the math beforehand, but I didn't.
You're good on the fly, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I mean, this is what I do. For
Right. Yep.
$385.
Okay.
So instead of being down on the Pulisic, 125, I
Mhm.
am into these cards for 385, which all I will say is instead of being down, you could do your own research and look at the comps. I would say, above water now. And I got three cards that I really like out of it. And it took two trades to get me
Yeah.
from down to my head above water.
Nice. Okay, so the lesson there is to not panic and just see what opportunities come about, and then if that opportunity, like you said, the stars align in your situation, but you also weren't panicking to sell that Pulisic just because you were at a loss on it.
Right. So
Okay.
that's why I felt a little better about trading it as opposed to just selling it. And I also did have a plan. I picked up that Harry Kane card knowing I have a friend who's a Harry Kane collector. And speaking of which, he's the one who traded me this Kobe card. And when
Mhm.
he was showing me the cards available, because he obviously wanted the Harry Kane, he described this card as a podcast card. And he is absolutely correct because it's a great story to talk about. Kobe was a big fan of soccer. He grew
Yep.
up in Italy a little bit. I think he's a Barcelona fan. So, I mean, how could you not like this card? Whether
Yeah.
you like soccer cards or not, it's Kobe heading a soccer ball. So this one's pretty sweet. I'm happy to have this. And I would say these three cards that I'm into for a little under 400 ballpark, it's probably valued around 5 or 550.
Nice.
Yeah.
Look at that. All right, smart moves. Okay, so we're still talking about digging yourself out of a hole. here on episode 22. And Craig, we're going to talk about the Dak Prescott card again.
Yes.
The card that, if you've been following on our crosstown cardboard journey here through 21 episodes so far, you've heard about the Dak Prescott maybe 3 or 4 different times. But if you haven't, we'll give you this synopsis, the cliff notes on it. Basically, I traded for this Dak Prescott rookie ticket auto, the Contenders BGS 9.5 with a 10 auto. One of his best cards, rookie year. Of course, the Contenders is iconic. And I was hoping that the Cowboys would, continue their run, maybe make a playoff push, but unfortunately they did what they have done for the past almost 25 years now. And we were talking, and you suggested that I list it on eBay to end right after the 49ers game ended. And I thought that was a great idea to get, the playoff hype, try to sell it for a profit. And I was into it for $550. It ended up selling on eBay for $610. Unfortunately, the buyer didn't pay. So I was left with the Dak Prescott. And I ended up selling it at Burbank for $475. So I took a minor loss on it, $75 loss. But then, I was able to have $475 that I'm ready to reinvest into the hobby, maybe buy some more Larry Bird cards or whatever situation comes up, and then try to make that $75 back that way. Now, the other option would be to hold that Dak Prescott and wait for maybe national time, because we'll both be at national this year, and see if somebody's interested in a quarterback on a team that might have potential again to do what they haven't done in the recent past. But, there's always that hype around football come that late July, August time when people are especially looking for quarterbacks. So I'm interested to hear what you think about my move to sell at a loss in that situation rather than wait for maybe an iconic set of cards of a quarterback who is not super desirable usually.
So you sold the Dak for 475 and you paid.
I was into it for 550 on a previous trade.
So sometimes, if you go to the casino and you come out even, it feels like a win.
Mm-hmm.
Or you go to the casino and you're down just a little bit, again, it feels like a win because the entertainment value, the time and the fun you had with it. I feel like the $75 loss for the Dak, but the amount of content we were able to get out of it, it paid for itself.
Yeah, the cowboy content. We did. We got some stories about it. We actually mentioned it on multiple episodes. We got some fun, to try to see, okay, can we try to time the market here like what you did so greatly with your Mbappe card that you were able to hit right at the right after the World Cup ended, which was perfectly played by you.
Yeah,
And
I did a little quick math here. So you
mhm,
took a $75 loss on the card that you paid 550 for. So that is a loss of 13.6%, which if you
mhm,
think about it like that is not horrible.
yeah,
Now, if you're someone that deals in high end cards and spent $10,000 on a card, well, now we're talking about a $1,300 loss. It sounds a little more severe when you put it that way. But I
yeah.
think in the realm of the type of cards that you and I are buying, you could live with the 13% loss because I know you put that money to good use.
Yeah, and for example, if you're looking at, okay, let's say, I know it's not apples to apples, but what did I put $500 toward recently or around that? Well, I recently bought a Nikola Jokic flawless patch auto numbered out of 15. And I bought that from my guy Nathaniel Brooks over in Australia, who I've done now multiple deals with. Love the Australian guys for
Cheers.
basketball. Yeah, cheers. Foster's, which is
Mean as.
Australian for beer.
I had a friend from down there in college. I said mean as.
What does that mean?
Just like, it's cool. Mean as.
Okay. I know they always call each other mate, which I just love the disposition of the Australian people. They're like, very down to earth. They're cool. They're willing to work with you, and very friendly people. So
I have found that in the hobby as well, actually.
yeah, yeah, and they love their hoops. A lot of Australian players.
Shout out
So
Andrew Bogut.
Andrew Bogut, Ben Simmons,
Mm.
um, you have several guys, and so I was able to do that deal, and I got the Nikola Jokic, which I ended up being into for 575, and just got it in last night, and somebody hit me up. I sold it for $700, PayPal goods and
Nice.
services. So after the fees, it came out to 680. After shipping, 675. So I made $100, and that
Boom.
basically made up for the Dak Prescott $75 loss plus 25. And so who knows if I would have bought that Jokic though, if I hadn't had the freed up cash by taking that loss on a card that I was digging myself out of a hole on and reinvesting it into the hobby. And rather than waiting for the DAC to go back up, I've already made my money back by putting it into another card that was a smart purchase.
Funny how timing really is everything in life and in the hobby. So you
Yeah.
you and I had two very different, I would say, approaches.
Hmm.
You took your small loss, you reinvested it, and you got yourself above water. I guess the way for me was, yeah, I traded it at a loss of a value, but I was able to trade it for cards that, in my opinion, were undervalued by basically the same amount that I was down, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like it depends on just and I love, the attitude that you said you went into your recent card show with. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm open to the opportunities when they present themselves. So, like, maybe if you had gotten an opportunity to sell your Pulisic at 200 or somebody was willing to pay
Go out of that.
decently strong, you know, could have been a situation like that. If I was presented with a trade for my Dak Prescott for $600 value, which was the last comp on eBay because that was mine, that the buyer ended up not paying for, I probably would have done that. But I would have been open to, whatever situation presented itself to just make lemons out of lemonade in that situation.
Now, not to put you on the spot, I know you're a man of high integrity, but if you're trying to sell that DAC,
Yeah.
does that 610 comp still come up? And if so, are you disclosing to whoever's interested, this was my comp, it wasn't paid for?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly what I told the guy who ended up buying it from me at trade night at Burbank. I said, listen, this sold for 610 and it was my card. The buyer ended up not paying. And so, that's what I'm asking for it right now. So, I was like, well, I really don't want to be 500 was like where I really wanted to be. He took another card, an Odell Beckham, super cool, actually, rookie immaculate player worn tag, numbered out of 5. And he bought that for 100 plus the DAC. So, and then I freed up like 600 of cash. So it ended up working out. But yeah, I feel like you want to be honest in that type of situation. I mean, if anything, they might have a little more mercy on me because a lot of us have been there before where you sell something on eBay and it ends up the buyer not paying. So, you get that full transparency and all of a sudden the walls come down between the potential buyer, potential seller. You're not trying to dupe anybody and it makes it easier to make a deal, I would say, most times.
Just being straight up, just being real. I
Yep.
knew it. See, you're a man of high integrity. That's what I'm talking about.
Try
And
to.
and it goes back to what I said. The deals that I made were all on Facebook, and I'll buy something on eBay or PWCC here and there, but it really is such a cheat code buying on Instagram or Facebook because nobody sees that comp,
Yes.
especially with the Pop One stuff. Nobody knows what I'm into this for, what I
Right.
paid for it. It's one of those unique cards that, I mean, like this Rose Lavelle, for example, like it's kind of with her, like if you know, you know. So if you're a big U.S. women's national team collector, the World Cup's around the corner. She's our best player. If you have not seen highlights of Rose Lavelle, definitely hit up YouTube. You will be entertained. No one knows what I pay for this, right? So Pop One, it's like what could it be worth?
You know
And
what's
that's a
interesting
whole
about
separate
that?
conversation. Yeah.
Especially with it being a Pop One, but also with the new generation of US women's soccer team players. Like a lot of people know Abby Wambach, Hope Solo, the bigger names of women's soccer because of the past championships. But you might not know that next generation coming up. So that could be an interesting I know you're on top of the U.S. men's and women's soccer teams, but that could be an interesting avenue, being a rare card, but also a player who hasn't been on that same level of national stage as like a Carly Lloyd or, players like that. Megan Rapinoe,
No mention of Alex Morgan, huh?
Alex Morgan. How could I
Legend.
forget?
Legend.
How could I forget?
And it does go, it kind of ties into, we talked about preparing for shows, and you're setting up at Burbank, so you might have some more LA Lakers cards in your case. I'm setting up at the last show in New Jersey. Well, that doesn't really change much for my approach where I am. Point is show prep, right? So the Nationals July 27th and the Women's World Cup begins July 20th. So when we're there, we're going to be right in the heart of it. So I like to
Yeah,
think ahead that I would be okay holding onto this card for a while. One, because she's an incredible player and I enjoy watching her. But if I could hold this on for national, it, could be something that's in demand at the time. So trying to think long term.
that's true. That's true. That's a good point. So I know you have a second story, Craig, I believe, on a different situation of how you dug yourself out of a card hole.
I don't need which story was this?
Oh, do you?
Uh-oh.
Is it
Uh-oh.
my time? Should we go
It
back
might
to me?
be. Yeah.
Okay.
Back to
Let's
you
go
in the
back to,
studio, Carmine.
put my earpiece. Okay, thanks, Craig. There's always that 3 or 4 second pause. So I had another situation, Craig, on getting myself digging myself out of a hole when I was underwater on a card, and it was a Kyrie Irving select rookie auto numbered at a 99, the on-card autos that year. And it was a SGC 8.5, which I don't know about you, but anything 8.5 just leaves a little bad taste in my mouth. You
Give
don't
me an
mind?
8. Give me an 8 over an 8.5.
I know. It's
So
funny. I would
serious.
rather an 8. Yeah.
100%.
I'm right there with you. So I sent this one into SGC myself, came back an 8.5. So immediately bad taste in my mouth just because of the 0.5 with the 8. It just doesn't sit right. But anyway, so I had it valued at like 375, and some of the raw comps, it's kind of, I would say an SGC 8.5 is probably similar to the raw price. And so it was difficult to have somebody pay 350 when like the last raw sales were probably 250, and I was a little bit underwater on the card because I was into it for like 375. So I ended up at a Burbank trade night again, and somebody came up with a Joe Montana PSA 8 rookie, which was valued at like 350. And they ended up asking me to trade straight. And the Joe Montana PSA 8, it's got a pop count in the thousands. Although it is, an iconic rookie card of an all-time great quarterback with 4 Super Bowl wins and no losses. It is a high pop. So, but I'm like, okay, well, if I can trade this for a card that has a lot of comps, because the Kyrie rookie select auto at a 99, not too many comps. So you could argue, what the value is a little bit more. But if I can trade that for a card with a 350 comp that's consistently selling at that value, I immediately accepted the offer and then ended up at the next trade night selling it for 300. So I got myself less out of a hole, or I got myself somewhat out of the hole, even though it wasn't completely. I saved, a good amount on it by trading out of it for a card that had consistent comps.
It's a good point you make about trading something that's lower pop for something that is more liquid,
Mm-hmm.
because you're able to get the value you want out of it. Just recently I showed you, I don't think I talked about it on here, but at the Bleecker trade night, I traded my Steph Curry select pink at a 15 and a PSA 10
Yep.
for the Roberto Clemente 1956 tops, which is such
Yeah.
an outrageous trade when you think about it. A
Yeah.
card from 1956, trading it straight up for a card from 2016. But I know what I was into the Curry for, and I was
Yeah.
able to get X value out of it, which ended up being closer in value to the Clemente. So whereas if I ever tried to deal that Curry, it's a little more okay, well, it's a pop one, so like, what's it really worth? Well, now I've got this Clemente that has more sales, is a little less standard deviation between another math term for you between the sales. So it's kind of hard to argue what the price might be. But yeah, I mean, like trading, it's like you like to have a low pop card because you could make up the value. But at the same time, there are situations where it's in your benefit to trade that low pop card for a more liquid card just to keep things moving.
100% agree. I was talking to somebody on Instagram today going over that same thing, and he had a Larry Bird Letterman, like the full last name, where the ones where it folds out. I'm sure you've seen them with the auto
That's
on one of the letters.
from Topps Letterman,
Yes, exactly.
2008 Topps Letterman.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know your stuff, especially pre-Panini. That's like
Mm-hmm.
your expertise. So he had it, and it spells out Bird, all four letters, and the fifth part of the folding out portion being just the cover of the card. And he had the Larry Bird auto on the B. And I'm like, oh, and he hit me up knowing that I love collecting Larry Bird cards. And I said, oh, that's super cool. What's your value on it? He's like, well, I'd like to be above 1500. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I can't find any recent sales. Have you seen anything on it? And he's like, no, it's only numbered at a 19. And, they didn't make very many of this set. And so I'm like, okay, well, it's a little more than I'd like to pay for something that I don't have a direct sale on or really anything to compare it to. So I'm going to pass for now, but I really, that's a super cool card. And thank you for thinking of me and showing it to me. And he's like, yeah, a lot of people have said that. They've said that it's super cool, but it's tough to value. And I said, yeah, that's the pros and the cons of having a low pop card that doesn't have either any sales or many sales. But I feel like in a trade, and I would love to get your take on this, which coincides with digging yourself out of a hole or leveling up through a trade at the same time. People are much more willing to accept your value on a card in a trade scenario if you're trading a low pop card like your Curry than if they're shelling out cash right from their pocket and trying to accept your value on a card that has not very many comps. Would you agree or disagree?
So are we going back to talking about trading low pop for something that's more liquid?
Yeah.
I think everyone operates differently. So I could be making a trade with someone, and in my head, I'm like, I've had a hard time moving this card. Let's go back to my Curry, for example. I owned it for literally 3 days before I traded it. But hypothetically speaking, let's say I had it for a while and I had a hard time getting rid of this card. Well, I want to just get my value out of it. So maybe I find someone who knows a lot of Curry collectors, or maybe I met someone on Instagram who lives in the Bay Area and knows he can move that card easily. So in his situation, he or she knows that, they will be able to move this card. Whereas for me, I've had my struggles. So I just want to get my liquid and move on from it. Everyone's got, you don't know whatever anyone's situation is, circumstance, whether they're a collector, whether they move stuff more regularly. So it's, it goes back to what we said. Sometimes it's to your benefit to own that low pop card. Other times it makes more sense to get some liquidity out of it.
And I feel like as long as you like that low pop card, which you do with the recent, even if you had to stay with that Harry Kane, that's a super cool, gold out of 10. I mean,
Gold optic, yep.
yeah. And so now you have cards that are low pop, but you still like. So even if you're stuck with that card for a little bit, you can enjoy it while you have it and then wait until the right offer, whether that be trade or cash, comes along for you.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
like, I'm pretty hyped. This is my only Tim Weah card. He's on the U.S. men's national team. His dad, George Weah,
mhm.
won. I think he was the only African player to win the Ballon d'Or, best player
Oh,
in the
yeah.
world. So we've got a lot
Yeah.
of history to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm happy about that moves. Happy I was able to move on from the Pulisic and dug myself out of a hole. Now we do keep it positive, and I feel like we talk about our wins and the losses we talk about are relatively small, like your 16% loss on the Dak Prescott. This card right here, the Messi Ronaldo matchups
Mhm.
from the first year Prism.
Yeah.
Man, I set up at the New York City show about a year ago and I did really well. It was one of my best shows sales wise, and the money was burning a hole in my pocket. So I think days after the show, and this is a good lesson when that money's burning a hole in your pocket, like maybe let it marinate for a second. I know it's hard because 2 days after the show, I bought this card for 3,000 cash.
Oh, wow.
I think that card is down 65%.
Ooh.
Not great. So how am I going to dig myself out of a hole on this one? This in this example, my plan is to just keep it. It's only a loss once you sell it. In my head, I'm like, you know what? This is iconic regardless. Yeah, maybe it's down a lot from what I paid, but maybe I'll own this card 20 years from now still. And who knows what will happen 20 years from now? Let time do its thing.
So I'm interested, Craig, because with that level of a card and you paying full cash for it,
One of the most expensive cards I ever bought.
yeah, I mean that's when you said
Maybe the
3,000.
most. Actually, now that I think about it, might be the most expensive I ever bought.
That's the most that I know that since we've been buddies for a little over a year now that I know that you've come out of your pocket from the cards that you've told me about.
Yep.
And I'm curious because we always love to add value to anybody who's watching and listening, taking the time out of their schedule to, go on this crosstown cardboard journey with us. And, we're super grateful that anybody would even give us the time of day. So we want to make it worth anybody's while. So how do you, because we've both been in these situations, but that one is to a pretty extreme degree. How do you try to stay sane and not panic and not be like, holy crap, that sucks. I mean, I don't mean to rub it in, but how do you make yourself not feel super bad about putting $3,000 into a card and then seeing it go down by 60+%?
Because I didn't just take $3,000 out of my banking account and then go buy this card. You know how like little by little you put a little money into the hobby, you buy a card here, you buy a card there, and that money that I had to buy it was from the show. So it was all card money as is. And I
Okay.
hear a lot of people that I talk to on Instagram talk about how they have their separate funds, their personal funds, their card funds. So the fact that the loss on this just came from card funds, I feel a little bit not as bad about it. But the lesson that I would have taken out of this is an early year Chrome set. So this is Prism. So think early year Topps Chrome refractors, early year Prism. For not much different of a price, I could have gotten a numbered version, and those values held up a little bit stronger. So that's a lesson I would take out of this is especially those earlier sets, numbered, more limited, where the print run would have been better off.
Okay. So not only do you really enjoy the card, but you also
Yeah, it's sweet.
learned a separate lesson that maybe you might use in the future too.
Yeah, and even with the loss, I still very much so enjoy the card.
Yeah. That's a big key. And the second you said that, I felt the same thing about digging yourself out of a hole on a card, but also being okay with the hole that you're in.
That's it. Stay in that hole. It's like a fort. Fort's a
Yeah, it's
goat.
like a bunker if you're in the military.
Yeah,
You
and
have you have the No, go ahead.
we'll leave the hole when it's time to get out.
Yeah. When the opponent stops shooting, you can come out of the bunker and empty your ammo and take advantage of the opportunities like with this Tiger, the rookie auto, the BGS 95 Tiger Woods sign of the times rookie auto numbered out of 274 in my background here on the Crosstown Cardboard YouTube. I traded and cash moved into that for Dave at Extraordinary Cards at a 7K value. And then the sales became 4.5, 4K, 4,800. And I felt the same thing as you, even though I traded into it with 3.5K cards, 3.5K cash. I was into it for around 5,000 total because I was into the cards for cheaper. And it made me feel better because I knew that was all card money and I had responsibly moved that outside of my life money, which I feel like cannot be overstated, the importance of separating those two areas of
Yep.
financial bank accounts, because if that was my real life money and I was down, 40% and it was thousands of dollars, I would be very concerned.
That's a lot of top ramen for you.
I know.
No knock on
Yeah.
ramen, by the way. I actually just recently bought a 6-pack because I was craving. So
Yeah. I mean,
ramen, one of the goats.
and that can dig yourself out of a hole if you're hungry.
That's it.
So,
Nothing left in the pantry. Boom, ramen.
boom. And that last example here, Craig, I bought this Larry Bird
Ooh,
exquisite auto patches, which is pretty cool. Also from overseas, an Italian guy on Facebook who I've done a few deals with. And so the last comp on that when I bought it was 1100, a fellow Italiano, Paisan.
paisan.
And it was 1100 the last comp when I got this. By the time it shipped to me, which was like 2.5 weeks, it had sold for 550.
Oof.
But I was into it. I got a pretty good deal on it for 625 because there were other exquisites, not an exact comp, but other similar cards, which we used to value because the comps were much more recent than the last exact sale of this card. So now I'm in a similar situation to the Dak Prescott where my comp on the Larry Bird exquisite auto patch is $75 under what I'm into it on. But on this case, because Larry Bird's my guy, my number one
It's your guy.
top dude who I collect, I have no problem holding a cool card and waiting for either another sale or keeping it or waiting until a potential trade comes up for something else that I like. So,
That's it. And I think what all the moves we've talked about today, I think what a lot of them have in common is we've picked up cards, whether we had to dig ourselves out of a hole, whether we're at a loss, cards that we really like.
yes.
This Kobe card I love. This Tim Weah card I love. He's a U.S. men's national team player. Same with Rose Lavelle. I mean, Messi, Ronaldo, it's iconic. And for you, your birds, yeah, you might be a little down on it, but you got a whole flock of birds with you.
Right. I'm like Birdman, except with no Lil Wayne and no rapping. But I do have definitely a couple other birds here I'm showing on the screen.
Light flex.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's all it is, I think hopefully people were able to get some information and a little entertainment out of our episode here, digging yourself out of a hole, Crosstown Cardboard episode 22. And just a couple quick shout outs and a couple thanks now that we're reaching the end of our episode here. Wanted to give a big thanks to Uncle Rob, our fellow Wolfpack running mate and sports card therapist on Instagram. And he had us on his podcast. Craig, it was the 13th time you've been on, and it was the first time that I have been on. That's what Rob put on his Instagram.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
it was the 13th time you were on. But you must have been on, what, 5 times or so?
Something like that.
Yeah. So it was episode 153 for him. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely give us a listen on there. Really cool to be on my personal favorite podcast, other than ours, the Sports Card Therapist. So thanks to Rob for having us on and talking about our journey, how we all linked up, and just really cool stuff that you wouldn't really hear on our own podcast because we've told our initial story and now we want to give value to anybody who's listening. We don't need to really talk too much about ourselves other than our card journey. And definitely a big thanks to now the 225 subscribers we have on YouTube, which has tripled since we put out the Burbank card show vlogs, part 1 and part 2, which has just been awesome to see the response to those. We have almost 5,000 views on the
Crazy.
part 2 of the
Crazy.
Burbank vlog and about 2,500 views on the part 1 of the Burbank card show vlog. So thanks to anybody who's watching me setting up there, going through some of the cool cards I saw there, including a full PMG collector's edition or employee exclusive, I should say, Upper Deck, the purple ones that I mentioned in this episode, numbered out of 125, and some of the deals and the trades and trading away my Tiger rookie auto for a few higher end Larry Bird cards. So just a big thanks to everybody who's subscribed and watched those vlogs. And if you haven't, definitely consider giving us a subscription on YouTube and the podcast. And Craig, you also, how about you tease your vlog video coming out of the card show you set up at?
Yeah, I was set up at the Garden State show with Rob and Tony and Ken and DJ and Cards by Joe. So I put out, listen, the production value might not be the best. It's not a show to the magnitude of Burbank, but you are going to see a point of view of just kind of how I operate as a dealer. I try to really make it a point to have fun and talk to people, and I think the vlog embodies that. So check it out. It's about 6 or 7 minutes long. Shows me making some deals, interviewing some people, talking about their collecting. And yeah, thank you for the continued support. Love the feedback. We just try to make relatable content, stuff that people could resonate with. And as long as we always say, we're staying active, we're always going to have topics to discuss.
That's right. And I've already seen the video because I got the exclusive sneak peek at your card show vlog. And it was exactly how you operate, high character, genuine, fun, cool nostalgia about the cards. And it showed off people who you've become friends with in the tri-state area and, New York City specifically. So definitely give that a watch. It was cool to see you in a card show setting and how you, and learning from what you do, because of course everybody has their own approach and how they operate.
That's it. Appreciate the kind words. We're going to stay winning. The Knicks are going to stay winning. The hobby's going to stay winning.
Yes. Bing bong.
Bing bong.
All right, bro.
Peace.